Hey, this is Bill Hauser, CEO of the S&B team, and in this interview, I was honored to talk with the best-selling author of the book, The Tools of Argument, Professor Joel Trachtman, and he talks about how to win, the secret to winning any argument. Then he talks about the secret question that you can ask during any negotiation that gives you the upper hand through what he calls reasoned persuasion. And then you're going to learn why your mental state is so important to win negotiations. And if you stick through to the end, he's going to give you the biggest tip he has for getting more profit per client for your business, and it's not what you think. So remember, subscribe to this YouTube channel if you like what we're putting out, and also in the comments below, put your biggest takeaway so it creates that mind neural connection so you actually take action on what you learned through this video. And last but not least, hit that like button if you like it. It tells YouTube we're doing the right thing, so it'll show the video to more people. I will see you in the interview with Professor Joel Trachtman. Enjoy. He is extremely accomplished as a professor, and he has reverse engineered with his famous book, The Tools of Argument, one of the most popular books in the legal industry. He has reverse engineered how to win any argument and the art of reasoned persuasion. So Joel, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
It's great to be here with you, Bill.
So questions I have here, we'll do this more interview style. What is reasoned persuasion?
It's kind of the opposite of what John was discussing. Well, John was discussing linking up your emotions and that part of your brain to the more analytical part of your brain. And I think any negotiation, any attempt at persuasion has to really do both. But my book focuses on the reasoned persuasion, which is the special set of tools that we as lawyers bring to bear and that our clients hire us to deploy. And what I realized, I practiced law for 9 years in New York and Hong Kong, and then I've been teaching for 30 years. And I spent a lot of time with scholars in different disciplines. And I realized that our discipline of law is different and unique. And it has, as I count them, and I've had a lot of people confirm to me that I seem to have gotten them all, though I'd appreciate other people's views, that there's 64 types of arguments that one can deploy. And what I recommend and think is important as a kind of discipline, and if you're committed, as John Asseroff says, if you're committed, you would spend your time checking, what are my opportunities? What are the 64 arguments that fit my particular context? And what I do with those 64 arguments is I also set out the potential counter argument. And so that allows people to say, okay, what works for me and what can I anticipate in my opponent's counter argument so that I'll be able to respond. And my idea is, if you're committed to excellence and you want to be able to market to your opponent, you see your opponent as a potential client or as a potential referrer, you want to achieve excellence at each stage. And it's not that hard. It's not rocket science. It's taking these arguments and figuring out which ones work and what can I anticipate. Now, I can't guarantee you're going to win every argument, but you can maximize your opportunities.
When I was reading the book, I was just in love with how well you explained it. For everyone who's asking, his book is The Tools of Argument. You can go type that in on Amazon to go buy his book. So what is the best question to ask in an argument?
The best question to ask is, how do you know? How do you know is really a way of testing yourself and testing the other person. And I had a colleague who argued before the World Court more than any other American. And he said, you have to find the unraveling thread in your opponent's argument. And if you can find that thread and start pulling on it, you can destroy, you can unravel their argument. And you start to do that by asking, how do you know that? How does he or she know that what they've said is right? That's a start to checking your opponent's argument. So that list of tools of argument is a way of kind of providing a taxonomy. How do I understand what my opponent is doing? And then it has the counter argument. So you can say, well, okay, what can I do in response? What's my best argument in response? What works for me?
how do you know? And I thought to myself, like, what tone of voice would you ask that in? I thought it's such a beautiful art because a lot of times when someone makes a claim that you disagree with, the human tendency is to get defensive and disagree with that. It's almost like a detachment from their point, and it allows you to see how it's going to unravel, which ties into my next question, which is point counterpoint. When I was reading this, I never saw point counterpoint explained. What is point counterpoint, and can you use it in any negotiation or argument?
We all went to law school and we learned a variety of things, but we didn't really have the information that we obtained in an organized way, unless you had a better teacher than I did. It wasn't articulated in a discrete, clear way. What is this argument? And what I try to do in the book is say, okay, this is an argument, and there's almost always a counter argument. I'll give you an example. Interpretation of contracts or statutes or constitutions. Here's the plain language, but no, there's the context. But no, there's the purpose. There's always a counter argument. In 1950, a Columbia law professor named Carl Llewellyn kind of wrote an article saying there's always in interpretation a counter argument. And he laid it out, and it means to me, especially in the area of interpretation of texts, that it's all open. It's all open to argumentation. And we need to recognize that what the other lawyer says is not necessarily going to win. There will always be counterpoints. And what I try to do in the book is for every argument, I lay out the counter arguments, because every argument has some weaknesses. And so the question is, are those weaknesses available in this particular context? We can be persuaded by different things in different ways. And we do have motivated reasoning. We want to come to a certain decision, so we focus on the kinds of arguments that will promote our decision. And behavioral scientists say we decide first, and then we come up with the rationales afterwards. And our job as lawyers, as advocates, and as negotiators is to give the other side all of the tools that will allow them to reason in our way.
Final question here. What would be your number one tip to law firm owners who want to win more cases and get bigger settlements if they're in PI, just to become better in the negotiating side of managing casework so that they can increase their profits?
It goes back to John Hauser's talk of really making sure that your actions and your conscious mind are consistent with your goals and desires. And I hate to say this, but it's preparation. If you're Bill Belichick or a great coach, you've got the same kinds of talent that every other team's got, but you can motivate your team and you can plan better and find small sources of advantage. That's what great coaches do. And that's what great lawyers do also. They find every source of advantage. And modestly speaking, that's what my book encourages people to do. Find the source of advantage, at least in argumentation. That's really all that it covers, and win those arguments. And, just to use another sports analogy, when Bill Belichick is losing a game and some player and some strategy are doing better than his team is, he's figuring out, how can I hire that guy? How can I emulate that? Every competition is a chance to market to your opponents, to your opponent's client, and to show your excellence.